Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a look at some of the best games I've played in a long time. One of the main advices I give to people when they ask me how to improve at this game is to use a team that they're comfortable with and a team that they know well. So I asked on YouTube on a poll if people would feel alright if I made multiple videos with the same/similar teams, especially in metas that are very Excel heavy / condensed and where it's very difficult to have success with a lot of different things, and most people were absolutely fine with it. So today we're going to take a look at a team that I have already showcased with one major difference, and that is that I'm running Earthquake on Excadrill. And no, this is not a gimmick. I actually think this is the best moveset to run on Excadrill. One, because you don't need Rock Slide for anything in this meta, like you're not seeing any flyers or anything like that. And two, you'll see. Trust me, you'll see. Let's take a look at the battles. In the first game, we lead into a Slurpuff. This is actually where we're going to see it because both of our steel types lose to this fairy type. And Tapini does have a pretty good matchup against it. So we stay in, they go for a play rough after 7, it takes 7/7/6 for the play rough, and then they swap into their own Tapini, which we can greet with a Moonblast before we're going to dip out into a lowland Sandslash. They do shield up the Moonblast, that is absolutely fine, and then we can bring in a lowland Sandslash. Both of our steel types do have significantly better matchups, obviously with a shield advantage against the Slurpuff, so I'm pretty much just gonna give a shield advantage to Excadrill. That is most of the time a very good strategy. We can go for one drill run here, and then I think my opponent might be thinking that I could live a serve, so they let me get to another drill run before throwing it, but this just puts them into a range where they have to throw a serve in order to take me out, so that I can't Shadow Claw them down. And then they leave themselves in farm range for my Excadrill so that I can get a shield advantage and an energy advantage. And the Tapini is already gone, so the only thing that can really stop me from winning this game is if there's a fighter in the back. We do farm them down with Excadrill, and then what are they going to bring in? It's not a fighting type, it is the Slurpuff. As you can see in this first game, I'm running Rock Slide instead of Earthquake on my Excadrill. This is a mistake. I always forget to change my moves in the first game. The move will be changed in the next game. Earthquake would have actually been very nice in this matchup because it would have taken out the Slurpuff at this range. But as it is, we have to take the Flamethrower and then we can overfarm a lot and go for another drill run. It takes 7/6/6 for the Flamethrower, so I was pretty sure they were added there, and Excadrill does win CMP, but we can just take out the Slurpuff. And in the back, it's a Shadow Lowland Sandslash, and we make it to almost back-to-back drill run. The opponent decides to just let it go, and it does massive damage, and then we can just mud shot them down afterwards, and that is a good game. Excadrill with a shield advantage or an energy advantage is amazing in this cup. Next game, lead into a Haxorus. Not a very comfortable lead, but this is definitely where we want to see it. We do make it to the Moonblast at the same time as they make it to the Earthquake, so no point in the CMP tying them. They try to catch a move on Registeel, also another reason not to throw immediately, and we swap into Excadrill, which is our best response to it. Against the Registeel, an Earthquake doesn't quite take it out, so I think 2 drill runs is still the way to go. It's also just a safer way to go. And then we can shield up the Focus Blast. It takes the equivalent of 7.5 mud shots for the Registeel to get to a Focus Blast, so we can overfarm quite a lot and then make it to another drill run, which they will shield up. And then they can make it to another Focus Blast. We can overfarm a lot on Registeel if it weren't for the fact that the Haxorus has an Earthquake loaded, and I'm very afraid they might try to swap the Haxorus in and then snipe him with the Earthquake to snipe away all the energy before I get it up. So I throw it before the switch timer comes up, and then they bring in a Tapini afterwards after letting Registeel go and go for 7 mud shots, and then I go for the Earthquake. I think I can make it to an Earthquake and a drill run, so I would go for the Earthquake first, because most people don't shield the first move, and then I go for it after 7 because it takes the equivalent of 7 mud shots for the Tapini to get to their serve. So I wanted it to be on a potential CMP tie to leave the Tapini energy dry, and then I bring in my own Tapini to get even more energy, because now I can bring in the Lowland Sandslash. They can bring in the Haxorus, but they have to Earthquake me before I make it to an Ice Punch, meaning they only come out with 2 counters worth of energy. And now because I have so much energy out of Tapini, because I loaded up on their Tapini as well, we can just make it to back-to-back Moonblast before they make it to another Earthquake, so we don't have to bait. And then we just take out the Haxorus, farm down the Tapini, and that is a good game. Next game, lead into Clefable. In later games, I just straight swap out into Excadrill, because you have to do it regardless, because this is an ABB team, where you use Excadrill to lure out a potential fighting type. This time I decide to take one move and then swap into Excadrill. They're actually staying in, and this is a pretty bad matchup for Clefable. This is also a situation where one drill run is not enough to take them out from this range, But we can go up to the CMP tie, take 665 for the medium edge, 776 for the Moonblast, and then go straight for the Earthquake. A Drill Run is not enough, but an Earthquake does take them out, and then they bring in an Excadrill afterwards. We can make it to a Drill Run as well, and we will be able to make it to yet another Drill Run. This will of course one-shot the Excadrill before they can farm us down, so they either have to shield twice or go for a Drill Run before we can, so they come out with only 2 much shots of energy, and we have a shield advantage, which is a very good spot. We can of course bring in the Tapu Fini on this Excadrill, and they go for a surf right before they make it to the Drill Run, but they catch it onto a lowland Sandslash, which is absolutely fine by me, because one surf puts them into a range where we only have to go for 1 Drill Run on the lowland Sandslash. 1 Drill Run is not enough to take out here, but 1 Drill Run from Excadrill threatens a lot more, so I want to save my shields for the Drill Run for a loaded Sandslash. Plus I can take a Drill Run here and still make it to 2 Drill Runs of my own, because it only does about 55%. So I could just let that go. They go for the bait, which is even better for me. We can of course shield up this Drill Run. We still have so much energy on a loaded Sandslash. The opponent realizes that, and they concede the match. Very good game. Next game, lead into Tapu Fini. This is probably my least favorite lead to see, except for Registeel of course. So we have to stay in because we have Excadrill in the back. We can't really pivot out of this, but also I don't want to throw immediately because a lot of people try to catch on a Registeel. I should probably shield, and that is what I change for later. This is definitely a mistake, not shielding, because once they land a Moonblast, if they shield your Moonblast, you won't be able to make it to another one, regardless of the IVs of your Tapu Fini and their Tapu Fini. You can see I have a rank 1, I still can't make it to another Moonblast, so they can just farm me all the way down, come out with a lot of energy. So in later games, I do decide to shield up in the mirror match, because they almost always bait. We can bring in the lowland Sandslash. Of course, we don't want to bring in the Excadrill. Very much hoping they don't swap out, and they don't. So now we can take both surfs, give a shield advantage to Excadrill, because we've already seen the Tapu Fini. If there's not a fighter, Excadrill might actually be able to clutch this. We can take out the Tapu Fini, and we just about make it to an Ice Punch on the Giratina that comes in as well. Now we're of course going to swap out, save the Sandslash for a potential sack later. They bring in a Flygon, which is not really what we want to see either. I think I should probably go for the Earthquake here, because it does about 79%. It won't take them out, but it will put them into a range where we can farm them down. And most people, because they know they can comfortably live one Drill Run, as I call the bait as well, they don't shield the first move from Excadrill, so we can just full send the Earthquake and put them into farm range, come out with energy for the Giratina. Instead, we have to go for 2 Drill Runs, and as in land 2 Drill Runs on this Flygon in order to take it out, as we also have to shield this Dragon Claw. It takes 4 for the Dragon Claws, so we also have to go for this Drill Run immediately if we don't want to shield the yet another one. And this just means that we're not going to be able to get to another Earthquake. Excadrill is just too frail. Like, fast move damage is just too much for the poor Excadrill, so we can only make it to the Drill Run, and it doesn't take out the Giratina. The Giratina can just farm down our entire team. Next game, lead into another Haxorus. Again, not a comfortable lead. We do make it to the Moonblast at the same time as they make it to the Earthquake, so I don't really want to CMP tie them. Also, some people like to try and catch, as we saw earlier. And most people with the Haxorus, when they go for a move, go for the Earthquake immediately. So we do shield it up, and then they try to catch a move on their Tapu Fini. We have to kind of go for a move. I have to keep alignment, and it's very difficult to keep alignment once you're down a shield, which is why it's very dangerous to go for a shield so early on sometimes, especially when you have to keep alignment. But because we got the attack drop, I was always going to go for the Moonblast, load up to another Moonblast, then swap into a lowland Sandslash. But because we got the attack drop, we can just take 2 surfs and the water gun and farm them all the way down. Whereas if we didn't get the attack drop, I think I might have to go for an Ice Punch on the Tapu Fini. But because of the attack drop, we can just farm them all the way down, save a lot of energy on Tapu Fini, and also come up with a lot of energy on a lowland Sandslash to threaten this Haxorus. We can go straight for the Ice Punch as they bring the Haxorus in. This will do a lot of damage. They shield it up, and then we go for another Ice Punch, which they catch onto Excadrill. Very nice catch from the opponent. And then I realized we're not going to be able to make it to another move, so I swap into my Excadrill to just basically sacrifice it. They overfarm perfectly with the Excadrill, so they come up with some energy as well. As I say, I'm just going to sacrifice it and then bring in my Tapu Fini. And I'm thinking I can just shield once. I know the Haxorus is only on 2 counters out of 9 because it's 10-9-9 for the Earthquake. So I can just shield once, farm them all the way down, come out with so much energy on my Tapu Fini. that I will be able to make it to 2 Moonblasts before they make it to an Earthquake. So we don't have to bait, we go straight for the Moonblast, they dual shield it up, but we can make it to yet another Moonblast before they make it to the Earthquake, and this will of course take out the Haxorus, and that is a very good game. Next game, lead into a Dragonite of all things. This is probably the first Dragonite I've seen in this entire Fantasy Cup. Good lead for Tapini. They're loading up a lot of energy. When people load up a lot of energy and you have a move that can one-shot them, they're basically forced to shield, or they should be very incentivized to shield, which is why I'm baiting, of course. And then I didn't really think, I just thought Dragonite has Dragon Claw superpower, but in this meta, it makes a lot of sense to use Hurricane. I don't really want to get farmed down. I don't think I can make it to another Moonblast, and I'm very much anticipating that they're going to swap out at some point. So I bring in my Excadrill, and they go for a superpower. As I say, it makes sense to go for superpower and Hurricane in this meta. They try to catch a Rock Slide on the Registeel, but nice on you, trainer. You caught a Drill Run because I'm not running Rock Slide. And then we can make it to another Drill Run as they get to a Focus Blast, but they threw off the 14 Lock-ons. And because I trust my counts, I know that that was only a Flash Cannon, so I just let it go, and then we go for a Drill Run, undercharge it a little bit. I should have undercharged it more to come out with more energy, but we don't really have a move that can threaten this Dragonite, so I saved the energy on my Excadrill. I'm anticipating that they were going to go for the CMP here, so I don't really want to throw the Ice Punch, and then they're very close to another superpower. I know that they're close to another superpower, so I'm looking at this. Either they're gonna go, as they try to overfarm here, either they're gonna go for the superpower before I make it to the Ice Punch on the CMP tie, or they're gonna catch the move. I am never going to get the Ice Punch off onto this Dragonite in no situation, because that would just not make any sense for them when they are outpacing to the superpower, which they will. So if they go for the superpower before I make it, or on the CMP, no point in throwing the Ice Punch. If they try to catch, I don't want to throw the Ice Punch, so I actually just decide to not throw here, and they try to catch on a Berserker, so we can make it to the Drill Run instead, and this will of course do big damage onto the Berserker. It takes 7 Shadow Claws for them to get to a foul play or a superpower, or no, not superpower, close combat, so they can make it to the close combat before we get to the Ice Punch, or on the CMP, which they will of course win. But now we can just bring in the Excadrill to start farming, make sure we have energy everywhere, because the Dragonite does have a move, but they only have one move. So we want to keep health and energy on both of our Pokemon, so they have to have 2 moves available, which they don't, so we can just go for the Surf. I think they realized that there was no way they're going to win it. I'm pretty sure they had the move loaded, but yeah, we take that game. Next game, we lead into a Shadow Load and Sandslash. I just swap into Excadrill here to see if there's a fighting type in the back. They go for a move after 5, so it can only be an Ice Punch, which we can let go. And then they bring in a Tapini. I'm not sure I could make it to 2 Drill Runs here, so I settle for 1 Earthquake, which will do massive damage onto the Tapini and leave them in a range where we can farm them down with their own Tapini and come out with a lot of energy, which can be very nice. They will make it to a Moonblast, which will of course do a lot of damage, but I really like giving Sandslash both shields, if not Excadrill. Like, Tapini is really just there to set up the other 2 most of the time. If I swap into a Lowland Sandslash immediately on their Lowland Sandslash, I will be behind on energy, which means they will just get to their Drill Runs before me. But if I go for 2 serves, which I will be able to make it to 2 serves before they make it to 1 move here, I can either force a shield advantage or put them into a situation where I can basically farm them down. So now I have a shield advantage. Of course, I have to give up the shield advantage pretty much immediately, but now I have an energy advantage instead. I shield up the potential Drill Run. It's only an Ice Punch. I was really contemplating it, but it would just look so stupid if it was the Drill Run. And yeah, they do bait me with an Ice Punch, meaning they come out with 1 Shadow Claw's worth of energy as they bring in a Clefable. You do need 2 Drill Runs to take out the Clefable with the Shadow Claw damage. So, but looking at it, it doesn't look like 1 more Drill Run is enough. If I go for it on CMP, they will still get off the Media Mash because it's not quite enough. So instead I decide to overfarm, come up with a lot more energy on the Load and Sandslash, farm up to 100 energy, and then go for the Drill Run instead. I'm not quite sure an Ice Punch would put them into a range where I can farm them down. So I make sure by going for the Drill Run, and then they bring in a Load and Sandslash. It had 1 before, so now it's on 5, meaning it's 1 away from the Drill Run. We go for the bait with Ice Punch, and then we can make it to the Drill Run on the CMP, which with my IVs, I am pretty sure I'm always gonna win in the mirror match. So we can just take out the Load and Sandslash, and that is a very good game. Next game, another lead where I just swap into Excadrill to see if there's a fighter in the back, and they're staying in with Clefable, which is very good sign for Excadrill. They can only throw resisted moves, but because Excadrill is not the most bulky Pokemon, it still does a lot of damage. And then they bring in a Haxorus. I could go for the Earthquake, which would one-shot them, but I go for the safe play by going for 2 Drill Runs instead to make sure I get off big damage or 2 shields, or like big damage plus 1 shield. So we get off the Drill Run and we get off a shield, and then we can bring in the Tapu Fini, but they just about make it to the Earthquake, which is really not ideal. It would do a lot of damage to Tapu Fini, so I do decide to shield it up, come out with a lot of energy and a lot of HP on my Tapu Fini. And then what are they gonna bring in? They're gonna bring back in the Clefable. We can farm up a lot and then go for a Surf. Looking at the damage from the Surf, it doesn't look like another Surf is anywhere near enough to take them out. So instead I want to take a move from them and then bring in my Alolan Sandslash, because Alolan Sandslash can, with the Shadow Claws, take it out with 1 move. We bring in the Alolan Sandslash, and in the back, it's another counter user. Double counter user is very, very difficult to overcome with this team, obviously. We can go for 1 Drill Run, and then we can make it to 1 Ice Punch as well. I think if I were my opponent, I would just take this Ice Punch because it's not going to take them out and then farm me all the way down. But instead they decide to expend energy, which might actually leave the door open for me, because now I can farm them all the way down shield once and come out with a lot of energy on Tapu Fini. Looking at the damage the first Surf did, I think I might make a bit of a mistake here. I don't think a Surf is enough. So I try to go for the surprise Moonblast. I should have probably just gone for double Surf here, because now I don't make it to a Surf as well. They just shield up the Moonblast. I don't think it would have been enough, but I should have probably gone for the double Surf, because no way they're no-shielding the first move. But yeah, GG. Next game, lead into an Excadrill, or no, lead into a Pokemon where we want to save swap Excadrill. Excadrill is always the save swap. It is a Registeel. We of course have to shield up this move. But we also have a lot of energy on Excadrill as they bring in a Giratina. We can't go for this first Drill Run. This is another matchup where you want to go Drill Run because 1 Earthquake is not enough, but 2 Drill Runs with the Mud Shots adding up is enough. We can't go for this Drill Run after 7, which is on the CMP for the Shadow Ball. And then it looks like if they go straight Shadow Ball, I will be able to outpace them to 2 more Drill Runs, but because they bait me with an Ominous Wind, that is not the case. We can do 5 more and then CMP tie them on a potential Ominous Wind. It is 6, 6, 5 for the Ominous Wind, 7 for the Shadow Balls. This is only an Ominous Wind, which won't take out my Excadrill as they shield up the second Drill Run. So I can go for this Drill Run and take out the Giratina, get Switch Advantage, but getting Switch Advantage with Sandslash up against the Registeel in the Zero Shields is not going to help me a lot. So instead I decide to bank the Drill Run, swap into my Tapu Fini, hope they would throw energy into my Tapu Fini with their Giratina. Instead they bank a Shadow Ball, which is also a very good play by the opponent, and then they bring in the Registeel. Not only do they bank the Shadow Ball, they also Shadow Claw me into a range where 1 Zap Cannon is going to bring me into lock-on range. I'm not quite sure if they undercharged the Zap Cannon. If they did, very nice on them, because now they come out with a lot of energy as well on the Registeel, and I'm not going to be able to make it to 2 Surfs. So we can make it to 1 more Surf, but it simply isn't enough. And because of that, because they got that lock-on farm down as well, I can't bring in my Sandslash because they will outpace me. So I basically have to just bring in the Excadrill and expend all of this energy immediately in order to take out the Registeel. And now it's just a Alolan Sandslash against the Giratina with a Shadow Ball and another Pokemon in the back. They have Galarian Weezing. I have to basically pray that this is the only Galarian Weezing in the entire Fantasy Cup that's not running Overheat for some reason. Because Overheat will of course one-shot the Alolan Sandslash. They overfarm and then they go for a move. And it is the Overheat. And it one-shots Alolan Sandslash. And then they can also make it to another move, which is either a Sludge or a Brutal Swing. They're on that the player up. It is a Brutal Swing, and it takes out the Excadrill. And that is another good game. Next game, lead into another Clefable, swap into Excadrill immediately, and they respond with a Haxorus. But this is where Earthquake comes in very handy. Haxorus does not have to shield the first move. It just doesn't, especially not when it's just landed a Breaking Swipe. But even with the attack drop, this Earthquake still almost one-shots the Haxorus And we get switch advantage, and we even come up with enough health to where we can make it to another drill run on this Clefable to do big damage on it as well. I'm a little bit afraid that there might be another fighting type in the back, or not a fighting type, but another counter user. So bringing my Alolan Sandslash here, this is not like an amazing matchup, but it is a good matchup for Alolan Sandslash. They make it to 1 medium mash, and again, 1 drill run is not enough to take out from this range, so I would rather shield once and then overfarm, come out with more energy. They make it to 1 more medium mash, it is 665 as I say, and then we can overfarm a lot, go for this drill run on the CMP, on the next medium mash. This will take out the Clefable if they no shield it, and they do. In the back, it is a Giratina, and this is a very good matchup for Alolan Sandslash. Of course, we can make it to the first Ice Punch, and they're only at the Ominous Wind now, which won't take out the Alolan Sandslash. Of course, Giratina does win CMP here, so we can make it to yet another Ice Punch. They can't shield this. Very nice recognition by my opponent, because if they shield it, I'm just going to be able to make it to Moonblast on Tapu Fini. But also, they're only on 10 Shadow Claws, it takes 665 for the Ominous Wind, and I'm 1 away from my Ice Punch, so I can just shield this Ominous Wind, make it to another Ice Punch to force the shield from the Giratina, and also, because my Shadow Claws are super effective and theirs aren't, I'm just going to be able to Shadow Claw them down, meaning they have to throw their Ominous Wind and their energy into a Alolan Sandslash in order to take me out. And yeah, they realize they won't be able to win it, so they concede. Next game, lead into another Shadow Alolan Sandslash, and another Shadow Alolan Sandslash that is throwing after 5. And it makes sense, as you're gonna see here, because they can actually win the 2 shields. With 1 turns of advantage, they win the 2 shields straight Ice Punch, which is really annoying. We can make it to the drill run, and I think I make a bit of a mistake here. If I no shield this, they take me out, or maybe they undercharge it and then they don't take me out, but they come out with no energy, and I have a shield advantage. If I shield, I will be able to get off this next drill run, but I still come out with 1 shields of an advantage, as in the 1-0 instead of the 2-1, but instead they come out with 5 Shadow Claws worth of energy, which I don't think is quite worth it. So yeah, now they come out with energy instead, and they should be 7 away from the back-to-back drill run, and I'm the equivalent of 7 Shadow Claws away from a Surf, and because I get 1 Water Gun in on the charge move, I will be able to outpace to the Surf, but I'm very wary that they might try to catch, but it's also very difficult to react quick enough, and they do catch it on their own Tapu Fini. Very nice catch by the opponent. They save 5 Shadow Claws worth of energy on their Alolan Sandslash as they bring in the Tapu Fini. I'm staying in to basically force them to throw their energy. They have to throw a Moonblast into my Tapu Fini, which I just don't think they're going to. I think they have it, but they go for the Surf, meaning we can still get off this Moonblast, do big damage to their Tapu Fini, and then bring in our own Alolan Sandslash to farm them all the way down, but not before they just about make it to a Surf, which is really unfortunate. We of course don't want to shield this, because we know there's an Alolan Sandslash with energy in the back, which is of course the move we want to shield, the drill run, and then they bring in a Clefable. Once again, it is the drill run from the Alolan Sandslash we want to shield. So even though this Meteor Smash is going to bring my Alolan Sandslash uncomfortably low, I have to no shield it, which is really not comfortable. It brings me into the red. And again, I don't really want to throw. I would rather let them get to another move here, because I know the drill run is not going to be enough. I know that they have an Ice Punch stored on their Alolan Sandslash, and I'm so afraid of the snipe. I thought that they might try to snipe me immediately, so go for the drill run to try and catch the snipe and like go for the CMP on the Alolan Sandslash. Instead, they don't snipe. We bring in the Tapu Fini. They bring in the Alolan Sandslash, farm down the Tapu Fini. We make it to the drill run on the Alolan Sandslash. We win the CMP tie. This will take out the Alolan Sandslash. And now we can Shadow Claw down the Clefable as well. And that is an unbelievably good game. Next game, lead into Giratina Origin. Most Giratina Origins just double shield against Tapu Fini, because they know they can win the 2 shields, even though Tapu Fini baits twice. So what I like to do here is go to the Moonblast, and then go for the bait with the Surf, and then I'm going to swap out afterwards. Because the Water Guns have put the Giratina into a range where Excadrill can one-shot it with an Earthquake, with the Mud Shots as well. They will make it to a move, to a Shadow Ball, before we can make it to the Earthquake. But because they've already expended 1 shield, I'm really not expecting they're going to shield it. They know they can live the drill run, so we go straight for the Earthquake, and it takes out the Giratina and all of the energy, and then they can bring in the Scissor, which we can go for this drill run. It takes 5 for the Night Slash for the Scissor. Go for the first drill run, does massive damage onto the Scissor, and then they make it to 9 bullet punches, meaning they're 1 away from the next Night Slash. So I shielded up thinking I might be able to mud-shot them down. Even if I can't, I can catch the next Night Slash on Tapini, save a lot of energy on my Excadrill for later. And then we catch the Night Slash, they bring in a Alolan Sandslash, we can make it to 1 surf, but of course they're not going to shield the surf because they know I have a loaded Excadrill in the back, which is definitely the moves they want to shield. So then let it go, and then they're going to farm my Tapini all the way down, come out with a lot of energy on the Alolan Sandslash. They will be able to pace to 2 Drill Ones if I bring in my own Alolan Sandslash, so I bring in my Excadrill to go for the Drill One on a potential CMP. My opponent very wisely goes for the Shadow Claw instead, and then they overfarm to right before I make it to the Drill One, meaning they come out with 6 Shadow Claws worth of energy, or actually 7 Shadow Claws worth of energy if I remember correctly, because they only went for the Ice Punch. So here, they are 1 away from the back-to-back. They go for the first Drill One. I know they have a catch in the back. I will be able to make it to the CMP. If I go for the Drill One immediately, it will be a CP. I will probably win it. I have to make a call. Do I think they're going to go for it, or do I think they're going to go for the catch? I call that they're going to catch it. They do catch it. We farm down the Scissor, go for the CMP with the Drill One on the Alolan Sandslash. And then we of course going to take out the Alolan Sandslash, and that is a very good game. And that actually brought me up, like, I had an absolutely incredible streak with this team. I also played a lot on my local Discord server, streamed for my local Discord server, and I gained over 170 elo with this team. Yeah, very nice. That was the last battle for today, and overall I absolutely loved this team. I gained a lot of elo the first time I used this team, and I gained even more the second time. And with Earthquake on Excadrill, like, that is genuinely a good move. Not just because it is a lot of fun to land, but also because it really works and it comes in clutch a lot. I landed an Earthquake on a Shadow Flygon on stream yesterday, and it was so much fun. But other than that, fun fact of the day, all 3 community days this season have been water types. So for Catch Cup, you're probably going to see a lot of water types and probably a lot of Carping, maybe even some Bastiodon, I'm not really sure. But maybe look into some grass types if you have one lying about. I'm not really sure which one would be the best, maybe even Lantern as well, but that might be a little bit more boring. It's always difficult to know what's coming for Catch Cup, of course, and it's always going to be very, like, a lot of variety, but I think maybe a grass type could be good. Other than that, if you like the video, remember to leave a like. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel. And of course, a massive thank you to the members of the channel. Your support is very much appreciated. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time.